I am so excited. I am currently packing my bags for a bucket list trip to Napa Valley, California. You know I'm packing some books for the journey, and because this bookworm loves a good theme, I tried to pick out some wine-themed books for this trip. The first book is called The Merlot Murders. I'm going to be checking this out from the library and taking it with me. It has a main character who gets a phone call that her father is accidentally shot in a hunting accident. So she needs to go home to the Virginian vineyard to take care of business. And of course, when she arrives, she finds out that her father's death may not have been an accident, but in fact, a murder related to the possible sale of their vineyard. The description of this one says that it includes a lot of the science behind winemaking, so I think this is going to be the perfect book to accompany me on my trip, maybe add a little bit of knowledge, maybe even make me sound a little bit more intelligent when I'm visiting these wineries. The next book is one that I purchased on my Kindle for like $2. It is called A Sip Before Dying. This one kind of starts out sounding like a Lifetime original movie because our main character is moving home to the vineyard that has been in her family for generations. They are in danger of losing it, so she is going home to try and save it. But her efforts might all be in vain because she plans this big event to showcase their wine and their location, try to save it, and someone is poisoned and dies in her wine cellar. It just so happens that the victim is the boy toy husband of a Silicon Valley female CEO. And so our main character is going to be very desperate to clear the name of her winery to get things back on track. Admittedly, the next book has nothing to do with wine, but I did want an audiobook to listen to on the commute from the airport to Napa Valley. This was a challenging one to pick because my boyfriend is not as big of a bookworm as I am, and he really does not enjoy audiobooks. So I am going to do what any loving, caring, devoted girlfriend would do, and I'm going to force him to listen to one anyways. I'm really hoping that this one holds his interest because it is about a woman who is traveling to a home that she inherited from her father. I think there's an element of renovation to it, which I think is something that he will really like. And then the thing is that her father was rich, I think. He was an author who made his reputation by his stories about this haunted house. So this house is supposedly haunted. I think that kind of haunted element, maybe a little bit of horror, some thriller vibes, will really hold his attention. Hopefully it captivates him and teaches him to love audiobooks. And just in case, in my wine-induced haze, I feel like reading and I finish all of those books, I'm also going to start Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. I want to read this book for a book review video I want to film on age gap romances, and Miss Mariana Zapata is infamous for this very trope. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. It's like 670 pages, so I most definitely will not finish it after all those other books. But it is about a woman who inherits some children and a dog, so she has this found family that she has to take care of, and now all she needs is love in her life. Even though I don't think there's any wine or vineyards involved, you have age gap, you have found family, I think it's going to be a good read. Anyone want to take bets on how many of these books I actually complete during this trip when we know I'm going to be sipping my way throughout the wine region? Comment down below with how many books you think I can complete during this reading vlog in Napa Valley. Hey, babe.
Yeah.
Do you want to listen to our audiobook again?
Sure.
Are you excited? So my boyfriend was making coffee and then breakfast, and then we were researching what to do today, so we didn't get around to Home After Dark, although we made it about 9% of the way in while waiting for our flight at the airport, so there's some progress. I'm really interested in it. We have our main female character who has just inherited her father's old dilapidated house. It has a reputation of being haunted, and she herself is infamous because her father wrote a book about the hauntings and her when she was 5 years old. She says it's all hooey though, because she doesn't remember it. She doesn't believe in ghosts anymore, or now, but something tells me she's going to be changing her mind. On the flight, I was pretty impressed. I made it to page 171 of the Merlot murders, and I'm almost done, so I'll probably finish this one on the trip. And it's pretty cute so far. I'm learning a little bit about wine. It takes place in Virginia, as I mentioned, I think, and so I like the American history that is in this book. Some of the antiques they have a story to them. I'm learning a little bit about the wine, but not as much as I would have hoped. But we'll see how it goes, because now she is trying to take care of the winery, save it from being sold, so she's trying to be very active. What I like is she's injured, so everyone says she's crippled, she's not going to be able to do it, and I'm really hoping she's going to prove them wrong. So our main character is trying to get up to speed on the winery, take care of harvest season, make sure everything stays afloat. And she's really suspicious of these two mysterious deaths that have happened, and everyone is a suspect. I really wanted to read my Kindle on the flight, but I was a dummy and I did not download A Sip Before Dying before getting to the airport, and the Wi-Fi there was so bad I couldn't do it until we got to the Airbnb, so I haven't started it yet, but this will be good for the flight home. The plan today, I don't think there will be a lot of reading throughout the day. We're going to go explore Sonoma, and then we have an awesome winery tour and tasting. I think after that we might just hang out at the Airbnb, so I might get some reading in later today. Then again, if the wine tasting hits me as beautifully as it did yesterday, I don't know if I'm going to be able to focus on the words on the page, so we'll just see how the day goes. I don't know, guys. I think he got the convertible just so he doesn't have to listen to the audiobook while we're driving. This is the Sangiovese. I've never had before.
Yeah, so we just
It's kind of soft, a little bit peppery. He says it's good with tomato dishes, so I have that primed in my head. I want pasta now.
So everything that
What's in it? What's in it? There's not a wide selection of books. I wish I knew. Kind of cool. Never would have expected that at a fancy schmancy library. Well, that day didn't quite go as planned, but in the best possible way. We ended up stopping at another winery. We went to the Coppola Vineyard, which is one of my favorite wines. We always get it from the grocery store, so it's pretty common in Phoenix. We get it all the time, so we had to stop by. They had an awesome Godfather museum and a restaurant, so that was a lot of fun. We also made a couple other stops on the way back, so we didn't get back to the Airbnb until after 9 o'clock at night. And at that point, with all the wine and the sun, I was too tired to open a book. Today we only had one tasting, and again I thought I would have the whole day to read and relax, but we had a little issue with the Airbnb and just a horrible host, so we packed up everything, canceled the remaining days, and we are now at a very fancy Best Western. My boyfriend wanted to stop at an outlet mall that's not too far from here, so he is off shopping. I didn't really feel the need to go to a Banana Republic or stores that I can visit at home, so I am here in the hotel. As soon as I power off the camera, I'm gonna go ahead and open up that book. Hopefully it will give me some more good information because we have 2 wine tasting stops tomorrow. I'm so excited because one of them is my bucket list location. This was the reason I wanted to come to Napa Valley, Sonoma, so I'm really excited for tomorrow. I'm gonna get all the wine knowledge I can. Tonight we're cracking open one of the bottles that we purchased on our first day in Napa. I think we're gonna stay in, just relax, kind of rehydrate and prepare ourselves for tomorrow. I almost forgot to tell you that I read 2 things on the plane that I thought were really cool in this book. On page 110, she's talking about why she loves wine so much. And she says, I like the fact that wine is somehow connected to so many pleasurable things in life. It's got romance, history, mystery. What more could you ask? I like the fact that archaeologists found wine jugs in the tombs of the pharaohs and that Noah is supposed to have owned the first vineyard. This book definitely talks about some of the technical aspects of wine creation, but on page 148, she says, producing wine is as emotional a task as it is technical. To drink a glass of wine you have helped create is to remember the weather that year, the events that happened in the world, and inevitably the events in your own life. As a result, I could never drink one of our wines from the year my mother died, for it seemed I always tasted a sadness that had seeped into the finish. I think the idea that tasting a wine can take you to a certain place or a certain time in your life sounds really magical. I haven't quite experienced it like that, to that level. I can't break out the flavors that much. I don't really have a sophisticated palate, but this is making me want to learn. Granted, the book I'm reading, The Merlot Murders, is a murder mystery, but they did educate me on wine. So they said that in the olden days, before there was a bunch of technology to do it for us, that people would plant rose bushes at the edge of the vines because the two plants thrive under similar conditions. So if the roses were under stress and wilting, then the winemakers would know that if they didn't change something soon, the grapevines would soon follow. So they thrive under similar soil, climate, water conditions, and these were an early indicator that something could be wrong.
So we're finishing off with a Cab and a Bordeaux blend. This is the Bellissimo. This is a Bordeaux blend, so it's Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Malbec. This is sexy glass right here.
Oh, big promises. Have you documented your guess in the comments down below with how many books you think I finished during this trip? Go ahead and do that now if you haven't already. On the plane ride home, I finished A Sip Before Dying, and I didn't update you too much on this one since I started it later in the trip, although I did tell you about it a little bit in the beginning. But in this one, we follow Emmy Oak, who is our main character. She moved home to her family's vineyard that's in Sonoma, which I was really excited about. That's why I wanted to read this book, because I was going to Sonoma. I thought that'd be really cool. Emmy is a trained chef. She used to cook for a living and she really enjoyed it. She was really good at it, but she moved home to take care of this vineyard for her family. She invited a ton of bigwigs to an event where she cooked for them and had them sample all the wines so that hopefully it would jumpstart her business and they would do future events there. Of course, it didn't go as planned because there was a murder. Someone was drinking the wine and it looked like they tripped and fell, but of course we find out that he was in fact poisoned. Emmy's motivation here is that she really wants to clear the name of her vineyard in this death. She doesn't want people to think that it was the wine that killed him, and she also isn't too thrilled about the idea of a murder. So she takes on the role of detective. And honestly, I hate that in murder mysteries. That's why I have to be very selective in what I choose. I just think that her motives didn't really make sense for the extent that she went in playing detective. I think breaking into places to hunt around and find clues, aggressively questioning people, and I don't even know why these people are entertaining her and talking to her. I would tell her to buzz off. Since Emmy was trying so hard to clear the name of her family's vineyard, I would have liked to feel a stronger family bond or connection to this place, but it wasn't really there for me. Like I said, I picked this one up specifically because it took place in Sonoma. I thought that I could connect to it since I was in Sonoma when I was reading it. However, there weren't a lot of descriptions of the place. I thought maybe they would talk about some restaurants, some really renowned restaurants, or some downtown areas, or the landscape. And again, not a lot of descriptions. The focus of this was really on the murder mystery. I also did not get a lot of descriptions on wines, whether it be the winemaking process, the history of winemaking, or the flavors of the wine themselves. There were a lot of descriptions on the food, which was awesome. Emmy was a chef, so she would make different dishes, and the book did mention what wine she would pair it with. I just wanted a much more robust description of all the flavors. That's what I was looking for here, and it kind of fell flat. At the end of the book though, something that I thought was really cool is the author put in recipes for the dishes that were mentioned, and also several different wine pairings that you could put with them. So for this example, there was a baked brie fettuccine, which honestly, that description was kind of good in the book. That one caught my attention. I love brie, so I was pleased. And then for wine pairings, it says best served paired with a fruity red like a Pinot Noir or creamy white wine like Chardonnay. Some of Emmy's suggestions: Dark Horse Rosé, Mum Napa Blanc de Blancs Champagne, Heron Chardonnay, Amici Chardonnay Sonoma Coast. And like Dark Horse and Amici, those are wine names that I'm familiar with. I see them at Fry's all the time. So it's kind of cool. I like this description of what flavors to look for, and then some actual wines you can pick up to go with these recipes that you can make. That was a cool feature of this book. For the murder mystery itself, I'm really bad at guessing the killer, so it's no surprise that I did not guess the killer in this one. There were a lot of great suspects, all with motives for murder. I wasn't really shocked when the murderer was revealed. I think there were so many suspects with motives for murder, and there wasn't a major plot twist. It was a very traditional, clean-cut murder mystery. I'm also kind of bummed that I didn't get the satisfaction of seeing Emmy save her family vineyard in this one, but it looks like this is the first in a series of wine-themed murder mysteries. And looking at the second one, it does feature the same character and the same vineyard, so I imagine that that will be kind of like the plot line that goes throughout the series. Overall, A Sip Before Dying focused on a good classic murder mystery, which was entertaining. And if I wasn't in wine country seeking more information on wine flavors and Sonoma descriptions, then I might have been a lot more entertained. I was a little bit disappointed because of what I was looking for, which again was really specific, so that's kind of on me. It was still a pretty decent one. The book that delivered a little bit more for what I was looking for is The Merlot Murders. I ended up finishing this one the night that I was doing my last update in the hotel over a glass of sparkling wine. I mentioned that I was enjoying some aspects of American history in this one. I don't know much about the Virginian wine country, but this book mentions that the climate and the conditions are very similar to those in France. And so they actually have some good luck growing grapes there, which was interesting. And the American history was that there was a little bit of a treasure hunt around the house. So our main character, Lucy Montgomery, is trying to save her family vineyard, kind of the common trope here, I guess. And she is searching around the house for certain artifacts. There is a necklace that used to belong to Marie Antoinette, and there is a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote. And so she is trying to find these items while trying to solve these murders so that she can sell them and save the vineyard. That proved to be a little bit chaotic at times because there was a lot going on with these treasure hunts and trying to come up with money to fix equipment and run the winery. And then you also had a lot of characters, which makes sense because with a murder mystery, you want a lot of suspects, right? So I couldn't remember everyone's names. There was a lot of people from her past. There was a lot of people new coming into her life with this murder going on and trying to investigate it. So it got very chaotic at times. And the thing that bugged me even more, it was that everyone was unlikable, and it made for a very negative reading experience. I know that the purpose of that is that so you can truly suspect everybody because you kind of dislike and hate everyone, but it was very cringy to read at times. For example, her brother Eli was a complete douche canoe, and I just wanted him to get a good lashing. I wanted him to be put in his place, knocked down a peg, and it didn't happen. Also, Eli is her brother, and he calls her babe, which is gross, first of all, and also really condescending. So I didn't like that aspect. There's a new winemaker who, of course, is unlikable and a flat-out asshole. He is very controlling, thinks he knows what's best, and I don't like the way that he completely disregarded her and did his own thing with the wine and the harvest and what they were gonna make and changed the strategy. Again, I really wanted him to be put in his place. Yeah, it could be cool that you're innovative and you're gonna bring the vineyard up to date, but I didn't like the way that he just steamrolled over her, and she is the owner. And Lucy knows a thing or two about winemaking because she grew up here. She has history, she knows what she's doing. And again, I'm sure he's unlikable because he's a suspect, but I just really didn't like how much of a doormat she was. She also has a creepy ex-boyfriend in the mix, who, by the way, is the one responsible for the car accident that crippled her. And he is a complete asshole too. And again, he's supposed to be an asshole. You're supposed to hate him. He's an ex-boyfriend. He's a suspect. So of course, you know, I get it. I get what the author's trying to do here. Doesn't mean I have to enjoy it. And he is a creep that would just prey on women, and he was abusive, and it was disgusting. And again, he didn't get what was coming to him as much as I wanted either. Maybe I'm just aggressive. I was much more pleased to see the connection that Lucy had to her family vineyard in the Merlot murders. She didn't have a good relationship with her father, the one who was murdered, but she did have a strong bond with her mother, who had died several years previously. And that's why she loves this vineyard so much. She talks about the different touches that were her mother's, and that was really special. And so you're really rooting for her to save this family vineyard. You want her to be successful. You don't want her to have to sell. This connection to the vineyard really helps you understand why she is motivated to solve the murders. Of course, she knows the victims. Unlike in the last book, she's connected to the victims, so that in itself could be motivation. But understanding that the murders happened possibly because of a sale of the vineyard, and she doesn't want that. She's super connected to it, reminds her of her bond with her mother. She wants to see it successful. So you understand why she's hunting for answers in these murders. As far as specifically what I was searching for in these books to enhance my trip to wine country, I mentioned I did read a couple lines that were pretty cool, and I did take some things from it. So I guess it was pretty successful in that regard. I was a little bit disappointed because I wanted more, but I mean, I have to really think about what I'm getting here. This is a murder mystery, not a nonfiction about winemaking, which sounds incredibly dull and dry if you ask me. So I think it did a good job. I think my expectations were just unrealistically high, because when I look at all the things I did learn from it, it's pretty cool. And there were some descriptions on the taste of wine. Again, not as descriptive as I think it could have been to really hit home for me. But I think there was more on the history of vineyards and winemaking, and I liked seeing her kind of take charge and run her vineyard, especially, as I mentioned, since she's considered crippled and she has a hard time walking around and everyone expects very little from her. I did not get the satisfaction of seeing her officially save the vineyard, though. Again, this is another one that is first in a series, and looking at book 2, it is the same character at the same place, so I bet you that will also continue for this one, and I would have to keep reading to see if Lucy Montgomery can save the farm. If you're keeping track, that is 2 books that I completed during my Napa trip. For the next one, Home After Dark, well, I failed. I did not convince my boyfriend to pick the book back up on the trip, so when I got home, I was still at 9% for that audiobook. I have been listening to it more since I've been home though. I am now at 40%, and oh my gosh, I cannot stand this main character. I can't stand her. I really thought about DNFing it, but then the creepy stuff started happening with the hauntings, so now I'm hoping that it switches gears. I just can't stand how our main character repeats over and over how her dad's a liar, and she just wants to prove that he's a liar, and she's very stubborn and incredibly immature, and her relationship with her mother saying she doesn't want her to go back to this house, and she says, well, just try and stop me. Ugh, she sounds like a stubborn 16-year-old. I just don't like her. But again, I'm hoping now that the hauntings are starting to take place again, maybe it'll get more interesting. It's an audiobook. I'm listening to it fast. I'll see if I can just push through it. And here is a little bit of a curveball for you, because outside of the updates and the actual trip, I was reading Wait For It by Mariana Zapata. I read this at the salon when I was getting my hair cut for the trip, and I read it kind of in some of the downtime at the hotel and a little bit at the airport. So I'm at 27%, and I don't know how you want to break that down. That might be cheating a little bit since I started it like right before the trip, but I mentioned it in the intro, so I thought I would tell you about the update now. We have our main character who has inherited her brother's 5-year-old and 10-year-old because he passed away along with his wife. And luckily she has some help, her parents and then the wife's parents. So between the 5 of them, they all chip in and take care of the kids, although she takes care of them on a day-to-day basis, along with their big ass, I think it's an Irish wolfhound dog. If you haven't seen those, they are huge. They are big dogs. So I love hearing the goofy things that this dog gets into. His name is Machiavelli, Mac for short. I think that's kind of sweet. And it looks like the love interest is going to be her very grumpy neighbor. I don't know, because there's 3 men involved. There's the grumpy neighbor, her business partner's cousin, and then the younger brother, which I guess would also be a cousin. I don't know, but they're an interesting crowd, right? There's a lot going on, a lot of drama. This is a slow burn, so it's gonna take a while. So I'll keep plugging away at this one now that I'm home, but that is pretty much it for this Napa reading vlog. I was really happy with the books that I picked out, trying to fit this specific theme of wine country. The murder mysteries were a fun vibe, even if they kind of annoyed me at times, but I was pleased with the couple things that I did learn and take from the books. It was really cool to be in the setting along with the stories. So that was really neat, and I love the descriptions of flavors, the food, the wines, the history behind winemaking. It really did enhance my trip, and I'm glad that I did it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this video about my Napa weekend, and I will see you in the next one.